Sea Goddess, The Wrath of the Fonz, Smoke Pit Fairy Tales Part 2, Chapter 10, Take My Hand. We survived to the middle of July. The lines were a blurred mess. Ivan and the Resistance took turns owning property in the beat-down, jagged structures that was now St. Petersburg. The Ilium military complex was the only real estate we hadn't tenanted. Every time we got close, Ivan brought out the big guns. The base had thick concrete walls. Rooks and T-90s patrolled the perimeter in packs. The few civilians that we saw looked at us in horror and ran the other way. We had run out of American cigarettes. Luckily, Ivan smoked more than I did. We took whatever we desired from the bodies we found. We got supplied enough that we weren't terribly in want, except for showers, sleep, and food. Most of us still thought it was safe to use Russian ammo in case we ran short. Stevens, McMillian, and I stood on the hull of a Knight that Athena, Cat, had taken down. We pointed the AKs we'd adopted at the cockpit hatch. Marcsky, one of the engineers, was grinding away at the door with a very large electric saw. The machine was dead in the water, but we weren't going to take any chances with the pilot. Marcsky sawed off the last hinge of the hatch and tied a tow strap to one of the edges. The other end of the line was attached to a truck that pulled the heavy metal door off the hatch. A set of hands raised out of the hull to the tune of indistinguishable blabbering. McMillian pulled the pilot out by his collar and threw him down on the hull. Stevens tied the pilot's hands together. Marcsky disappeared into the cockpit.
What do we have here?
He lifted out a stuffed backpack.
Cookies, vodka, cigarettes, and porno.
Stevens joked. I wish. I grumbled, looking down into the cockpit.
You want to take pictures of this shit?
Marcsky asked, pointing to the Knight's control panels. Not really. I got some of that shit for the S2 a few weeks ago after that assault on Ilium.
Don't remind me of that shit.
McMillian shook his head. The pilot said something to us in Russian.
Shut up, fucker.
Stevens kicked him in the ribs. We climbed down off the wreckage of the mech where 1st Platoon was waiting for us. We lowered the pilot with a rope. We stood the pilot up on his feet and Fonzie grabbed his face.
You speak English, Ivan?
The pilot blubbered in Russian.
So, no.
Fonzie displayed a hand signal and McMillian put earmuffs and blindfolds on the pilot.
I doubt Ivan here is going to tell us anything. What's in his bag?
Marcsky dropped the pack and started rummaging through it.
Oh, hey, here we go.
Marcsky pulled a Russian flag out of the pack.
Pistol magazines, half a bottle of vodka.
Fonzie grabbed the vodka.
Score. That's about a half a shot for each of us, right?
Flashlight, maps.
Marcsky stared into the pack quietly. What's up? I asked, noticing the silence. Marcsky's fist rose from the bag, clenching a tattered American flag. No one spoke as he extended the battered colors. The edges were signed, a stain marked where someone had bled out onto the stripes. Marines had written their names into the stars.
Those guys are 1-7. Put that away.
Marcsky and Doc folded the colors the best they could into a triangle and put it in Marcsky's pack. Fonzie turned to the Russian pilot. He calmly pulled off the Russian's blindfold and earmuffs. The rest of us stared down the pilot.
You like killing Marines.
The pilot's speech sounded confused.
You take that flag yourself, or did one of your bitch-ass cronies do it for you?
The pilot stared at Fonz, not knowing what he was saying.
Either way, it's not like we should take it personally, right?
The Fonz smiled and dropped his Kevlar to the ground. The pilot smiled back.
I mean, you're just defending your motherland, right? It's not like you fuckers started this war or anything!
Fonzie brandished the bottle of vodka.
Cut this dude's flexi cuffs.
Sure?
Do it, McMillian.
With his hands unbound, the Russian started to smile.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good time. You should laugh.
Fonzie laughed and playfully punched the pilot in the shoulder as if they were friends. The rest of us only stared. The pilot grinned and started to say something, but Fonzie broke the bottle on the Russian's forehead. The clear, watery liquid mixed with the Russian's blood. Fonzie grabbed his hair and repeatedly stabbed him in the neck with a broken glass. The Fonz let go of the pilot, who fell limp on the concrete. Fonzie picked up his helmet and gave Marcsky a stern look.
Towards the cockpit.
Charges were set under the computer in the mech. The platoon huddled together in front of the collapsed Knight and held up the Russian colors we took from the pilot. Eclair put his camera on the brick and set the timer. When we looked at the photo on the camera's display, the dead Russian's legs were in the foreground and no one was smiling.
I don't want to do the paperwork on that fuck anyway.
We patrolled back to the company's command post. Our sleeping area was in a warehouse next to an overpass. The floor was cold concrete. Crates full of machine parts filled the room. We slept between the wooden boxes. When there was a storm, rain dripped through the windows and the ceiling. It wasn't all bad. There wasn't any traffic to keep us up. Not that we weren't all half dead from constant gunfire. That would have kept us up anyway.
Why wasn't this fucking place leveled before we even got here?
McMillian asked.
Because there's civilians here, and even if they did start the war, Uncle Sam wants to be the good guy.
Fucking Congress and the goddamn bleeding heart mothers of America would rather have us all face down dead in the dirt than have America fighting a war correctly. It's a bunch of hunky-dory Mickey Mouse bullshit.
Stevens bitched, lighting a cigarette.
Nobody wants to do what it takes to win a war. They just keep throwing people into the meat grinder when, if they let us do what it needed to be done, we could break the grinder. War is supposed to be terrible, but they're making us play nice with Ivan. No excessive damage, no flamethrowers, nothing bigger than a J-dam, bullshit rules of engagement. We're gonna lose this war because the people of America won't let us tear this bitch down brick by brick and spatter everything that fucking moves.
We're not going to lose this war, I noted. Congress will, but kill for kill, the Marines are winning.
Yeah. Live and learn, right?
Bama said.
No, not live and learn.
Eclair shot back at Bama.
Fuck. 2 fucking weeks ago they tried to helo insert into Ilium, and we fucking lost most of Echo Company.
We technically lost all of Echo Company.
McMillian corrected him.
The guys that made it back were reassigned to Gulf so that at least one of the companies was at TO.
Yep. See?
Stevens pointed to the Ilium military complex on the horizon.
If they just napalm or nuke or gas that shit, there'd be 100 less Marines in Arlington National Cemetery right now.
Oh, but that's inhumane.
Is there a humane way to kill someone, Doc?
Good point.
Doc snuffed a cigarette out on the bottom of his boot.
But everyone always wants to talk about this meaning of life bullshit and their philosophy of how a war should be fought. But I still have to go to work tomorrow, and I have a war to fight. Congress or not, we're all still here eating the same shit soup sandwich with a butter knife.
An hour or so later, I was digging at an MRE and watching the sun set over the ocean with Stevens, Doc, and Eclair. We were sitting on top of the overpass, looking over the little territory that we could claim was ours. McMillian walked up to us with a sack on his back.
What's that?
Mail, dude.
McMillian dropped the sack at our feet and rummaged through it. We all eyeballed the burlap like children waiting for a present from Santa Claus. McMillian handed Eclair and I each a box, and Doc and Stevens letters.
Sick, dude. Thanks.
Don't thank me, man. I didn't send it to you.
Alright, well then fuck off.
McMillian patted Eclair's head and disappeared. I opened my box. There was a letter and a carton of Luckies. Oh, fuck yeah. I showed off my smokes. I'm getting tired of Ivan's shit tobacco.
It's not that bad.
Eclair said, smoking a Russian brand.
It's not like they're pines.
Ugh. I opened the letter. Penelope sent me more or less the same letter she'd been sending me, full of I love, miss, and worrying about yous. She enclosed a picture of her in a nightgown that used to extend to the middle of her thighs. Now it barely covered her panties because of the big round belly our child grew in. I put the photo in my wallet next to the others. I fantasized about one day when I was an old man, someone looking through my scrapbook I had on a shelf full of pictures of Penelope pregnant, Marines in St. Petersburg, and dead Russian soldiers. I got a kick out of the disgust on my imaginary person's face. Ah, fucking that's if I grow old. This immortality shit better just be some wounds. Hey, what'd you get? I asked Eclair, who was peering over his box. I looked over to see that he had a Playboy in his hands. Jenny had taken pictures of herself in the same poses as the girls in the magazine, then cut out the pictures of herself and taped them over the girls in the magazine. I never got the whole shape.
Hey everybody, it's me. Alright, just real quick, I gotta do a little bit of edit here. Hank makes a joke that I don't think YouTube would appreciate, so it's not gonna be on YouTube, or Spotify, or wherever the hell you're listening to this. Hank makes a joke about women who, wax the, bottom floor. You know, doing the Krillin, the Mr. Clean as one might say. But he says that dudes that do the horizontal hustle with those types of ladies are the kind of guys that go on certain flights to certain islands in the Caribbean. You know, islands that the Clintons frequented before a certain someone in jail, you know, took the easy way out. Anyway, the unedited version's on Patreon and will be in the audiobook when that comes out, so. Until then!
Eclair closed the book.
Come on, dude. That's my wife.
Ah, sorry, bro. Curiosity got to me. I started opening my Luckies. Eclair shook his head. But seriously, though, when you get back, you should get a pinup tattoo over on your arm or something. I offered him a Lucky. Eclair pulled a cigarette out of the pack. I offered one to Doc, but he waved me off. He was too deep in his letter. Stevens. He didn't respond.
John!
Eclair nudged him. Stevens shook his head and looked at us.
Huh?
Lucky? I offered him the pack.
No, I'm good.
You alright, dude?
Susie had her surgery.
Oh, shit. Is she good now?
Yep. Everything turned out well. She's good and fucking healthy now.
Well, that's good, I said, finally lighting a cigarette for myself.
Yep. Susie's recovered. No more illnesses, all hunky-dory. And moving to San Francisco with some guy named Jody. Fucking bitch! Hey Johnny, thanks for taking care of me when I was sick and probably going to die. But now that I'm better and you're gone, I found this really awesome dude and we're going to Frisco. Cunt!
Ah, dude, I'm sorry, man. I said, not puffing my cigarette out of respect.
I don't fucking give a fucking shit.
Stevens made a paper airplane out of the letter and flicked it towards the ocean.
I'll go back to Cali and fuck hotter, younger chicks. They're all over the place down there.
No, dude, that's like seriously fucked up.
Stevens shook his head.
It's alright. That situation's no worse than being stuck in Russia. And all cats feel the same in the dark.
Yeah, sure you don't want a cigarette, man? Stevens took a smoke.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to chain smoke your problems away.
We sat there silently for about half an hour. Our only music was distant gunfighter and lighter clinks.
I thought there'd be more big city here.
Huh?
There's like 3 skyscrapers here. Besides that, nothing's more than 5 or 6 stories tall. I always thought that St. Petersburg would have that big city feel, with skyscrapers and shit.
Yeah, I guess not. I lit another cigarette.
But the architecture here is pretty cool. It's actually really fucking beautiful, even if half of it's destroyed right now.
I think it's beautiful even with the holes and grit.
I don't know. It gives me a weird feeling. Like all the columns and art that's built into everything. Reminds me of photos from World War II where all these guys with guns were running around and fighting in the old world.
You know this place used to be called Leningrad back in World War II, right?
Did the Nazis come through?
I think so, but I don't know how they did.
They probably got their asses kicked, like in Stalingrad. You really do have to be fucking stupid to invade Russia. But hey, now I can point St. Pete out on a map. War is how Americans learn geography.
The sun disappeared over the water in the distance. We climbed down to our packs and hit the rack. I laid there staring at the concrete lines in the overpass. It was dark. The power was out in most of the city and we were exercising strict light discipline. I hadn't had a hard time sleeping since we got to Russia. I was usually too exhausted to stay awake longer than a minute while I was lying down and much too tired to dream. I thought about being home in my room with Penelope and a bottle of wine, red wine, not the virescent stuff. I thought about Penelope lying naked on her stomach with her head resting on crossed arms on the bed with olive tree posts. That was a bitch to build. I thought about massaging Penelope's back with olive oil. I never figured out why, but she loved it. I fantasized about rubbing the cool liquid into the muscles in her back and tracing the outlines of her rose tattoos with my fingers. She would have her hair flipped over her head, exposing her neck. After I'd make my way down her back, I'd walk my hands up to her shoulders, then, around to her breasts. She'd turn to me, and when our lips touched, I'd breathe in what she exhaled. I'd start rubbing my...
Hey, me again. Something else is being edited out because it's not appropriate for YouTube. Hank starts thinking about Penelope, if you know what I mean. Again, full thing's on Patreon, and will be in the audiobook once it's done. When you get it off Audible. Hopefully soon. Anyway, back to the video.
Little downstairs lips, and then I'd be off to Never Never Land. I was in a church, kneeling in the pews. There were dark figures on the benches around me. Fear boiled in my belly. The church was on fire, but with every flicker of the growing flames, the chapel grew darker. The dark cloaked figure beside me whispered in my ear. His words were terrifying to me. I couldn't understand what he was saying, but I knew whatever it was a sinister lie. The fires of the burning church engulfed the walls and they crumbled to the ground. The church was in St. Petersburg. There were Marines and Russians and Flax and Kevlar fighting with swords and shields in the burning city. The great red dragon spread its wings and soared above the skyline, spewing down its napalm death. The dark cloaked figure beside me pulled down his hood, and it was satin. I sighed in relief. I pointed to her and half laughed. Hey, this is a... I woke up in a cold sweat.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to this chapter of Smoke Pit Fairy Tales Part 2. Sing Goddess the Wrath of the Fox! What chapter is this? Chapter 10? Chapter 10. Who was in this? Alright, so we would have had Dyllan, Dzielski as Stevens, Clayton, Sims as McMillian, Travis Wiedemann as the Fonz, John Q. Haskell as Marcsky and Bama. What's up, Canucks? And Kadar as Chuck. Doc was in this too, right? There's no way Doc wasn't in this chapter. Oh, yeah, there he is. LaVoki is Doc. All right, so as always, if you want the unedited version of this, it's on Patreon, or just go buy the audiobook if you're listening to this in the future. If you're not listening to this in the future and you're listening to it the day it comes out, or shortly after it comes out, then I may or may not have this out in January. I'm making pretty good headway right now. I think on my end, before I even sat down to make this video for this video or chapter or whatever, I think I'm on chapter 12 or 13. I did chapter 9 like not too long ago. I've been knocking them out is what I'm trying to say. All right, well, also on that, thank you to everyone who is supporting me over on Patreon and everyone who's got a war chest. And the war chest is the first 6 books of this series inside of a custom painted ammo can with cards and stickers and stuff. I got a few coming in right now. I'll make a behind the scenes how to make them thing for whenever they come in, or how I make them, or what all's in them, like in the video, you know what I mean? Oh, that'd be around for a thing, you know, show you what's up. But anyway, yeah. Also, a lot of you guys have been buying, well, I think it's you guys, someone anyway, have been buying art off my website. So, you know, thank you to you people. I like the paint too. I'm just sitting here watching this right now. Probably should script these things a little bit more, right? Oh, yeah, also over on Patreon, I put these up on Patreon as I get done with them, so, you know, they've got a few chapters ahead of this. And, like, long-term goal is I want to have, I want to be working on book 6 before the 5th book even, like, gets to YouTube. That's my long-term goal. Then again, the 4th book's 40 fucking chapters long, so that'd be a good buffer space for that. But I guess the order release at that point, what I'm gunning for is you get it first on Patreon, and then you'll get the actual audiobook on, you know, Audible or whatever, and then it'll hit YouTube last. Right now we're doing Patreon and then YouTube. Right now we're doing it to where, you know, it goes on Patreon as soon as I'm done, and then YouTube, you know, on the schedule, and then the audiobook once it's done. So like the audiobook probably will come out, you know, a couple weeks. They'll hopefully hopefully a month or two before, you know, the chapters are wrapped up on the tube. But yeah, setting goals. All right, I'm rambling. Here are your bloopers. Thanks for tuning in again. See you next week, or you'll see me next week. I don't actually see you people in the little iris box thing. All right then, ciao.
Sing Goddess, the Wrath of the Fonz. Smoke. Oh, don't do that. We pointed the AKs we adopted at the cockpit hatch. Cockpit. A set of hands raised out of the hull to the tune of indistinguishable trip. Marcsky stared into the pack quietly.
Gonna do that one more time.
Fonzie laughed and playfully punched the pilot in the shoulder.
If you wanted those, whatever sounds better.
The platoon huddled together in front of the collapsed night and held up the Russian coolers.
I'll go back to Cali and fuck fodder.
Fuck fatter chicks. Fat girl.
Yeah, I've been that guy too. Take a little, I'll wet my whistle.
We sat there silently for about half an hour. Our only music was distant gunfire and lighter chlinks.
Fuck. 2 fucking weeks ago, they tried to helo insert into Ilium. Gonna do it one more time.
We sat there silently for about half an hour. Our only music was distant gunfighter.
But I still have to go to work tomorrow. And I have a war to fight. Fuck it. But I still have to go to work tomorrow. I have a war to fight. Fuck God. All right.